Russia has lost two strategic planes, one A-50 mainstay, the Russian equivalent to an AVAX, and an Il-22M, which managed to achieve an emergency landing but is heavily damaged and had casualties on board. In this video, we are going to talk about what happened, who likely shot it down and how, and what that means for Russia in its war against Ukraine. We'll start off with the mainstay. It has 19 men on board, 5 pilots, 11 radar engineers, 3 technical engineers. The personnel itself is difficult to replace as the Russians don't have a huge fleet of them. According to estimates, they roughly have 8 to 10 of them in service. One was damaged in Belarusia last year, but managed to evacuate afterwards after a small drone placed a small explosive charge on the roof of its radar dome. It is important for Russia as it extends its radar warning range, because obviously the higher you place it, the less it is blocked by the curvature of the earth and objects on the ground. So its theoretical range is at 500 kilometers or further, and thus allows the Russians to identify aerial objects far earlier than it would with radar stations on the ground. The other plane is the Il-22M Kut B. It is a flying commando station that is used to coordinate troops on the ground. It's on a strategic level, so whole armies, whole front lines, and the overall command, the supreme command of the Russian forces use them. According to estimates, they roughly had 12 of them. One was shot down by Wagner during its rebellion, and now the other one was heavily damaged. This plane stayed flight-worthy, but the radio intercept said that they were demanding ambulances and fire brigades on the ground during their emergency landing. And we actually have freshly in a picture, supposedly at least, showing this plane, where you can clearly see the shrapnel from an air-to-air missile or an air-to-ground missile from a proximity fuse that heavily damaged the plane. Now, the event happened, according to the drive, that close to Kirilivka. This is down here. Here is Kirilivka, roughly in this area, and this can give us some indications of who is potentially responsible for this. Now, the range is roughly 120 kilometers to the front line. This puts it in range within Patriot. It seems unlikely, though, as you obviously don't put a strategic air defense system right behind the front line. It would have to be further back, probably somewhere here, where it's like really stretching the range to its maximum and is still in danger of longer range artillery. So far, the Ukrainians have used probably Patriot in shooting down the Sukhoi 34 here in this region. They might have just done it again, but as of now, at least, it is unclear. The system itself is very big, has several trucks that are needed to operate it, and as it's in limited supply, it would be a massive risk for the Ukrainians to undertake to try to put it this close to the front line to shoot down a plane, even though in this case it might have been successful. Option number 2 would be shot down by a Ukrainian fighter jet. Theoretically, it could have been an F-16 with an MRAM. The problem there is that we do not have confirmation, and there's no serious indication that the Ukrainians already have F-16s. And while on paper the range would be sufficient to shoot down here an MRAM, the problem is that the A-50 is made to identify enemy fighter planes, so to not be spotted from a long distance, any F-16 would have to hug the ground and shoot the missile from very low altitude, which then not only has to cross probably 120, 140, 150 kilometers, but also climb to an altitude of roughly 8 to 14 kilometers, and that seems to make it almost impossible that even if the Ukrainians should already have F-16s, that it was responsible for the shootout. Now, the Russian mill blogger Riba said indicates that it might be friendly fire. This is what the pro-Russia area is currently saying. There are two options for that, either pure incompetence or maybe some sabotage when it comes in regard to the identification friend-foe, the IFF system, that the Russian air defense wasn't able to identify the planes as their own. It's unclear. And once again, we have the Russians claiming that it did themselves. We've seen it in the past where in the occasion of explosions on airports, they claimed it was somebody smoking, where they claimed that the Moskva sunk in a heavy storm after a fire on board, where usually they try to, for whatever reason, say that we've been incompetent rather than saying that the Ukrainians are competent. Something I never understood. This might be once again it here, that they rather blame themselves than admit that the Ukrainians might have had some success for whatever reason. Right now, as said, the Russians are admitting that the A-50 is shot down. This is supposedly, I wasn't able to confirm it fully yet. It's on the Russian mill blogger Telegram channels now. This picture is spreading, so this is probably the plane. The Russians confirmed that there were casualties on the ground. As said, we have several options. Friendly fire, it could theoretically be a Russian fighter jet as well. So either friendly fire with air defense systems or fighter planes by the Russian. It could be a Patriot system, probably in repetition of what the Russians faced with their Sukhoi 34 over Kherson. Or it could have been a Ukrainian fighter jet, but that seems to be the least likely option in this scenario. What does it mean for the Russians? Now, with 8 to 10 A-50, this is a plane that they'll have a hard time replacing. In Russian military, bloggers are emphasizing that their audience shouldn't worry, while the Ukrainians have to beg for planes. They themselves produce them, and that is true. But if they order an A-50 today, it probably won't reach the units before 2028, 2030, somewhere, because it's currently not under serial production. The production would have to be restarted for it. So basically, for now, this is out of the question. With 8 to 10 in operational use, they lost 10% or maybe more than 10% of their fleet. This doesn't mean that it cripples them, but it makes it more difficult to surveil the whole front line, as obviously those planes have to go through maintenance cycles. They have to, the crew has to rest, and it's unlikely that they have spare crews that they can just cycle through. The southern area will probably they'll still be able to cover it, as they have enough to circle around here, spotting for Ukrainian both ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and obviously fighter planes as well. But what we see here, if they lose it, and unless they determine that it was actually their fault, it will force the planes further back. And that is important for Ukraine, as obviously 500-kilometer range is roughly somewhere here. If it has to fly further south, the range is reduced inside of the Ukrainian territory, so less time in preparation for their own air defense units, less warning time, less time to start interceptors to try to catch the Ukrainian Sukhoi 24Ms that are launching Storm Shadow and Scalp cruise missiles. In these regards, even if the Russians can maintain their plane presence on the front line, it will still cause a problem, as they will have to send it further back and thus reduce the warning time they achieved with those planes. In regards to the Il-22M, the number is supposedly 12 of them. Now it should be 10, at least 10 operational. If and how long it would take, if it's even possible, and how long it would take to repair this is out of my competence to judge, and we only see a fraction of the plane here. The damage might be much bigger. Some claims are that 2 of its 4 turboprop failed, which would indicate a heavy damage on this side as well. So if it's even possible to repair is a whole different story. With 10 left, they probably can keep up their usage as well, but it should reduce the coverage that the Russians can provide, and thus hinder them somewhat too. For Ukraine, important to shoot down important planes, but the loss of the planes itself will not cripple the Russians. More important will be that if the Ukrainians actually did it and it wasn't friendly fire, that this will force the Russian planes to fly further back. And it's for a reason that they fly where they were flying, as the closer they are to the front line, the further they can reach into the rear areas of the Ukrainians, the further they can reach towards the troops here along the front line in regards to the Il-22M. So a big win for the Ukrainians here, but none that is going to be decisive. But it will improve their tactical position along the front line there, as the Russian surveillance opportunities, their surveillance means, will be diminished. That's already it from me for now. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment if you disagree or agree, or how you would interpret it. And if you're new here, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future videos. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. Thank you very much to everyone already supporting this channel. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.